Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Veg Grower Podcast. My name's Richard and I want to encourage and inspire you to grow more of your own food in whatever space you have available. And I do this by sharing exactly what I've been up to in my own allotment and my own garden. I've been growing my own for over 30 years now and I'm still learning stuff every single day. Now this week, when this podcast is released, I will actually be on the road with Lee Connolly, getting kids into gardening, getting 10,000 school children growing some seeds. It's going to be a very, very busy week, but don't worry, we've got a great episode coming up. This week we've actually got a cracking interview with Hotbin Composting, as well as the latest updates from the kitchen garden, the allotment and Chef Scott's latest recipe. So without much ado, let's get into it. Now it is mid-May here in the kitchen garden, and one of the things that I've been doing a lot of this week is getting a lot of my young seedlings that we've been growing over the last few weeks into the ground. I felt they couldn't wait any longer, but with being away for the week next week, I've been a little concerned that if I get plants in the ground, they need watering daily. So I can do this at home because Amanda's going to look after the plants for me. But down on the allotment, that's not an option. Now this week, what I've been planting is my tomatoes, my brassicas, peppers, chillies, pretty much everything that we've been sowing over the last few weeks, and just basically filling up the entire kitchen garden. It's now looking really quite full. One of the things that has been happening is our overwintered chard that has bolted, and when it bolts it loses its flavour. Basically it's no good, so I've had to rip those out of the ground, giving those to the chickens of course, but that did free up a little bit more space in order to get a few more plants in. Now, because I am away for this week, I have had to show Amanda how to water things properly. Because a lot of the plants are newly planted, they really do need watering daily in order to get established. The exceptions, of course, being my autopot system in the greenhouse and my Vegepod system that we set up last week. Those are both working incredibly well. They're both keeping our plants really well hydrated. We're seeing plenty of growth on those, so it is working. But the actual garden itself, that does take quite a bit of time for watering, especially as it is going to be dry over this next week and we haven't had rain for a while. Although when I dig down, I still do find the soil is quite moist as we go down. So I've been showing, I say showing, that's not quite the right word. I've been demonstrating to Amanda how to water my plants properly. She knows how to do it, but there's just certain things that I'm a bit better at. So I've had to show her how to do it. And one of the things that she's decided that she wanted to do, which goes against our principles and even hers, but she's being realistic, is that she wants to use the hosepipe. Now normally we use our watering cans to water the garden, and that's fine. It works quite well. But it does take quite a long time. It takes well over an hour to water my garden. That's time Amanda doesn't really have. She's working, she's got various things to do, as well as walking the dog and etc, etc. All the things that I would normally do, she needs to take care of, feeding the chickens, of course, and things like that. So she's decided she's going to use a hose pipe, which is mains water, which isn't my ideal plan, but it's only for a week. And we need to do it. And this is one of the things that I've always said, if anybody's looking after the garden or allotment, we have to make it easy for them. Otherwise, they're not going to want to do it again. So I've shown her how to do it, how to water the garden properly and make sure that all my plants then establish. And when we come back from our week away, they should be pretty good condition. They should be well established actually by then. Now, one of the things I have also been running as an experiment this year is the Hotbin versus Dalek experiment. And we're going to be talking to Hotbin in just a moment. But one of the things I've done after talking to Hotbin, I actually checked and see how much compost the Hotbin is producing. And I've got to say, it is actually looking really quite impressive. I'm genuinely impressed with the Hotbin compared to the Dalek quite a bit. But we thought we'd talk to Hotbin anyway and find out a bit more about the product and how it works. And we've got Andy coming up in just a moment. Now, in the meantime, let's find out what's been going on in the Supporters Club this week. Well, I'm just going to interrupt this podcast quickly and ask if you would be good enough to leave us a review on your podcast provider. Only takes you a few seconds, but it means the world to us and it helps us get found by more people who might also be interested in learning how to grow their own food. But if you also really enjoy this podcast, you want to help support the work that we do, then please consider becoming a member of our Supporters Club. The Supporters Club really does help keep this podcast running. It costs just £5 a month to be a member, but for that you get extra bonus behind the scenes podcasts that give you a bit of an idea what's going on here at the Veg Grower Podcast HQ. Added to that, each month through your letterbox you also receive our monthly seed pack, and within that seed pack you get a collection of seeds that I've chosen to be sown in that very month. And also you get a copy of our mini newspaper, which give you a few instructions as well as a few checklists of things that you could be doing in that month as well. Now, as an example of what we've sent out this week, we've been sowing some runner beans and some winter cabbage, which just gives you a bit of an idea of what we're sowing and how we try and gear this Supporters Club to work around. Now, if that sounds like something you would be interested in, please head to the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk to find out more and hopefully sign up. So we're welcoming back Andy. Now, we've had Andy from Hotbin Composting on the podcast. I think it was about 2019, if I'm not mistaken, quite a few years ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
It was a while before COVID, if I remember correctly, or COVID caused the upset, which I keep saying this year, funnily enough. But welcome back, Andy. It's lovely to have you. For those that didn't hear or may not remember the podcast from back then, can you tell us a bit about yourself, how you got involved in Hotbin and how Hotbin came about?
Yes, certainly, Richard. And again, thanks for having me back to preach and talk composting and Hotbin specifically. I suppose from my point of view, I've been involved with the kind of parent company for Hotbin for nearly 15 years now. So I actually work for a company called Engineered Foam Products, and their big mantra is kind of sustainable innovation, and Hotbin is one of those sustainable innovations. And we don't just manufacture consumer products, we also manufacture automotive components, so lightweight automotive components. Obviously, that's helpful for making vehicles electric and lightweight and making them more efficient, but we also make insulation for construction components as well to make our houses more efficient as well. So those like two of the other sort of core products that we manufacture. We bring in the raw material, and we manufacture these other types of product as well. So it's not just Hotbins, not just consumer products. We also manufacture insulated boxes for pharmaceutical market and for just shipping of food and drink to keep produce fresh. So there's lots of sort of strings to what we do at Engineered Foam. But like I say, Hotbin's a key component and one of our most successful consumer products that we launched probably over maybe 12 years ago now. So it's it's been going quite a while. Hotbin, I suppose, came around, maybe we first heard from the inventor, Tony Callahan. I think it was 2010, 2011. He had approached us with this wacky idea. Let's make a compost bin out of a really highly insulating material. Let's make the walls really thick so it locks in the heat that's been naturally produced. Obviously, we had to then consult with him on the design to make sure it was manufacturable on our equipment and our machinery. It went from there. Tony had this background of kind of engineering, a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, the keen gardener as well. But I think I told this story before when we spoke last time, but his wife had a rat jump out of their cold compost bin, and she said to him, either stop composting or find a solution that doesn't attract pests or vermin. So yeah, that's how the Hotbin came around. Yeah, and we worked with Tony, and then I think we launched with Tony around about 2012. And yeah, it's been going from sort of strength to strength ever since.
Yeah, so 13 years these have been manufacturing. I've seen them all over the place, and I know they are a very, very successful product. But for those who are unfamiliar with what exactly is hot bin composting, what is it? How would you define it?
Good question. I mean, really simply, it's a mechanism. Our system allows you to really insulate, and insulation is the key to any hot composting system. Cold composting will get to a certain temperature. Typically the heaps are bigger, so they kind of self-insulate, but you need more space. With our systems, and we've got 3 different sizes of hot bin now, we're just bringing that heat and just doing it on a much smaller scale and a much smaller footprint. And with these 50 mil thick insulating walls, it's got a solid base to it. It's got a hinged lid, which is then locking in all that heat. So cold composting, you might, weather dependent, obviously, you might achieve, on average, maybe 10 Celsius in your bin throughout the year, which might give you a nice usable compost in 12 months or so. But with hot bin, because you've got that insulation and you're maintaining much higher temperatures, you're getting to temperatures of 40 to 60 Celsius. And 60 Celsius is like a hot radiator in your house. So it's significant temperature. And I've seen like videos of people on YouTube trying to cook things in their hot bin and experimenting with all sorts of unique ideas. I did soft boil an egg in one we had outside the office, wrapped it in foil. But yeah, after about 12 to 24 hours, we had a nice soft-boiled egg. I tasted it gingerly and had a little nibble, and it was decent enough. But yeah, no, it's purely the temperatures you're achieving and that ability to maintain those temperatures more consistently, which then maintaining those temperatures, you get your compost that much faster. So instead of the 2 years plus, we're talking 30 to 90 days for a usable kind of general, well, we say 30 days for a mulching grade of compost, and then 90 days for more of a general purpose rich compost that you might expect to buy from your local garden centre.
Oh wow, it's pretty quick, isn't it?
Yeah, and that figure, well, at that temperature, it's actually 32 times faster than a cold composting system if you maintain. There's a kind of, you've probably seen from your hot bin, it's got a little green zone on the thermometer. So if you maintain that little needle between 40 and 60, you're in that sort of optimum spot, and you're going to be producing compost 32 times faster than a cold compost bin. And there's this equation in composting: for every 10 degrees hotter you get your heap, it multiplies or doubles the rate at which you're breaking your compost and your waste down. So you can imagine it's that much faster at those hotter temperatures.
Sure. Now, the scientist in me has got to ask the question: where does the heat come from? What is it that produces the heat?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when we go to events and shows, what's the heat source? How's it powered? Is it solar powered? Do you plug it in? And I think I remember one time we were at Hampton Court. We were on this exhibition stand, which was in front of a row of, or I think it was a lorry of generators, and people thought this lorry of generators was powering our hot bin. It's like no. And people are surprised. It's purely just the bacterial process. In the right conditions, bacteria, obviously they need food, a food source, water, oxygen, and then they'll in that condition they'll work hard, but that activity generates heat as a natural byproduct of your waste breaking down and the bacteria getting to work digesting your kitchen, your garden waste. And it's kind of like I suppose a human diet as well. We need certain foods, certain ingredients, sugars, glucose, and that sort of thing to help us to function as humans. And same goes for composting and the bacterial process as well.
Yeah, so I guess when we're adding materials, we're effectively feeding those bacteria to keep that heat being produced. It's a
But obviously,
uh,
those high temperatures as well allow you to compost more types of material, so it's a bit more flexible with the ingredients you can add in.
oh right, because that's actually a question I do have coming up later. Is what materials can we add in and what can't we add?
Okay, so but yeah, with regards to that, the question should be probably what can't you add in? We've got a big long list of a downloadable PDF on our website, which details 170 things that you can safely hot compost. So I don't know whether you wanted to share that as a link in the description after the podcast. But yeah, things you can't really put in, the obvious things: glass, plastics, really large, bulky, like woody material. I would recommend not to overfill it with one type of material. Things that, in my experience, I sometimes find that are visible in my final compost, but not to say you can't compost them. Like things like waxy things like avocado skins, they're quite durable and hardy. That said, though, you can just throw them in at the top again and cycle them through for another sort of 30 to 90 days. Eggshells as well. You can obviously throw them in, but I would recommend crushing them up as small. They'll obviously give their nutrients. I think it's calcium carbonate, and that will be absorbed into your compost as well. Things like people often ask as well, can I put my compostable caddy bags in there? And again, that's absolutely fine to do, but I just rip them open. Otherwise, you're creating another surface for the bacteria to break through that before they can start digesting your kitchen waste inside. And I suppose the other one, which people probably wouldn't try and compost as well, is like things like really prolific weeds, like Japanese knotweed and things like that. Yeah, it's probably steer clear.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of those pernicious weeds are not suggested for composting, but I guess with the heat being produced, they're not going to survive that heat anyway, are they? It's going to kill them
Yeah,
off.
all your perennial weeds, that's absolutely fine to put in. And I had my son on the weekend just gone picking up all the weeds that had come through in the lawn, and he was helping pull them up. And yeah, absolutely fine to put in your perennial weeds. I'm inundated with dandelions at the moment, so yeah, they're all going in. Ideally, you need to be at 40 Celsius to be able to cook off and sterilize those weed seeds, and so that you're not getting them germinate when you use the finished compost. But yeah, things like the other types of waste that you can put in would be obviously your cooked food waste as well, which you wouldn't normally cold compost. So any leftovers, plate scrapings, I suppose the perfect solution is don't overmake food so you've got the right amount, so you don't have to end up throwing it in the bin. But when you've sometimes got fussy kids like I do, just want to eat plain pasta, and sometimes putting something new in front of them is a bit of trial and error. So occasionally there are those little scrapings off the plate that it's great. You can just put them straight into the hot bin, and you're not having to put them into refuge or anything like that, which is great.
Yeah. Now, I know when I've spoken to some of your staff members at certain events,
Yeah.
one of the stories they've told me before, something that I found quite surprising to put in the hot bin,
Uh-huh.
was a chicken.
Oh yes.
No, I'm assuming it was a pet chicken or something along those lines.
Yes, indeed. We had. I think this lady communicated the story at one of the events we'd been to, and she happily skipped along and was like singing the praises of the hot bin. And she told the story. She kept chickens as pets. Obviously, one of them sadly passed away. I suppose she could have gone down one of two routes, buried it, but she had a hot bin, so she dug a little hole in her heap at the top of her hot bin, and then put her pet chicken in there, and then just put a bit of shredded paper around, and then covered with some more waste as well. And then upon harvesting the compost 90 days later, there wasn't really much left. She successfully blessed the chicken, but yeah, no, successfully composted a whole whole chicken, which was, yeah.
I mean,
Definitely one way of doing it.
that's a story in itself. I mean, technically, I believe it's illegal to bury a chicken. So this is, in my mind, it's technically a good way to dispose safely of any bird. Has there been any other things that have been surprisingly composted in hot bins that have taken you by surprise?
Things like, people putting seaweed in, you can compost human hair, anything sort of organic. I remember seeing somebody had contacted this, wasn't about composting, but somebody had contacted us saying he'd tripped over and landed on his hot bin, but because it's like this shock absorbing soft material, he was kind of imagining, this could have been a hard wooden pallet or something, but he'd actually tripped over, landed on his hot bin, and absolutely fine. But yeah, as for unique things, cotton underwear, organic fabrics. I think it was Alice Fowler who mentioned that she composted her cotton underwear and things like that. If that sort of thing, quite unique.
It's pretty amazing what can be done. They've already mentioned that it takes between 30 to 90 days to produce usable compost.
Yeah.
Is this pretty a standard time expected?
I would say if you're new to Hotbin and you're just purchased one in your first batch, I'd say your first batch is always going to be probably around about 90 days. Everybody is different. Everybody's composting something different ingredients going in. Somebody might be able to maintain the temperatures 40 to 60 for that period of 90 days. Some people might be a bit more relaxed about it and not worry about it too much, and it might take slightly longer. So the 30-day is more, once you've taken your first batch, you've got your kind of cyclical cycle of composting going, and then you can empty it every sort of 30 days after you've had your first batch out of it. Typically, in my experience, when I'm starting my bin, put in maybe half a box full of grass, maybe 20 litres of grass, line the base with a thin layer of twigs or woody prunings, not many, just to stop those aeration holes in the base getting blocked. Obviously, airflow and airspace is key to how it all functions. But yeah, it's really straightforward. And once you've got it about halfway full, you do need to have the bin, that critical mass of kitchen waste, garden waste in there to have enough bacterial activity to get up to temperature initially. So yeah, you're aiming for that 40 to 60 Celsius, but it's not imperative. You're obviously, with the system like this, always going to be composting at a higher temperature than cold composting, because it's just that much more efficient in the heat. Full maturity, there and thereabouts, 90 days is a good marker where you can just pull the hatch off, have a little inspection, see how it's getting on. If it looks dark, rich, and composty, you've done pretty well, and you're in a good place to be able to harvest your compost from there on out.
I know you've got a wide range of different sizes hot bins, and you've got some that are suitable for smaller gardens, patios, balconies, from what I've seen, as well as some much larger ones for allotments.
Exactly, yes. So as the years have gone by, we've kind of iterated on the designs, and we've launched new sizes, and we've done that basically off the back of customer feedback. We launched with the 200 litre version, but some households that's a little bit too big, and then people say, I've got so much compostable waste, I need something bigger. So yeah, in 2019 we launched the Hotbin Mini at Chelsea Flower Show, which we also put it into the Chelsea Product of the Year, and we won that year as well. So the Hotbin Mini won the RHS Garden Chelsea Product of the Year in 2019. I think what the judges liked about it was, it's making composting cleaner, simpler, and more accessible to sort of modern and smaller households, which might have smaller gardens, might have smaller spaces. I think the Hotbin Mini, as across the whole product range, probably equates to about 40% of all our compost bin sales. So it is a good seller. But yeah, we have lots of customers that use the Hotbin Mini because it doesn't need quite as much waste to keep it maintained and to keep it active. So if people have a small postage stamp of a garden or just a small container garden without any borders or without any grass, the Hotbin Mini would definitely be the sort of best solution. And there's case studies on our website as well, where people have used the Hotbin Mini successfully in that kind of setting.
Fantastic. I mean, I find that quite fascinating that people have too much compost material and needed a larger one, which I think that just goes to show how much we would normally send to landfill or waste, which is part of human nature, isn't it? It's such a wasteful society.
Yeah. The Hotbin Mega, we launched the Hotbin Mega. So the big supersized bin, that was so that comes in a 450 litre or a 700 litre version. It's a flat pack arrangement, and you can this one works more as a batch composter. So you kind of filling it, get it full, and then you can leave it for a period of 90 days to let it fully compost down. And typically you find if you've filled it to the 700 litre version, after it's composted down, you likely to have in and around 200, 300 litres of usable compost after that period. But yeah, the benefit of our systems is, you're just upping that speed, you're upping that throughput of compost, waste to compost. So in theory, a 200 litre version, if you're harvesting from it maybe 4 times a year, every quarter, you're kind of getting 4 times the amount of compost than you might get out of a cold compost bin, for example.
Now, what sort of role do you think hot composting plays in helping people to grow more sustainably and reduce household waste?
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to, anything organic is compostable. It doesn't have to go to landfill, or it doesn't have to go off to incineration. It doesn't necessarily have to go off to curbside food collection. If you've got anything that's organic, and if it's something that's been grown or it's come out of the soil, any which way, it can go back into compost and then go back into the soil to improve your soil conditions, improve nutrients, and grow your next crop. So something simple as a banana skin or a leftover bag of salad at the back of the fridge doesn't have to go in the bin. It's all good stuff. It's all compostable stuff, and you can simply convert that into some really nice sort of black gold that your plants are gonna love. And the more we compost at home, sending obviously waste to landfill generates methane, which is obviously bad for the environment, and we're keeping those nasty gases at bay by doing it at home. And I suppose one thing we haven't mentioned about the Hotbin is that it does produce a liquid fertilizer as well. So again, you've probably noticed on yours, it's got that little blue cap where you can drain off and collect your own naturally produced liquid fertilizer, which is a good benefit to the system, which we introduced on the Mini and also redesigned into the 200 litre bin in 2019. So it's great to be able to use that and have that other byproduct of the system, which you can use in and around your plants to help give them a bit of a boost. You can water that liquid fertilizer down, maybe a ratio of 10:1, and that don't water the foliage, but just water in around the base of your plants, and that'll give them a good sort of natural boost. But I think it's just more trying to think more circular, keeping that kind of green loop. If you've got that waste, just being super mindful of, don't put it in the black bin, put it in the hot bin or the compost bin. That's the best way to do it going forward.
Sure. And all this is then also going on to feed our soils and protect the soils, which we know there's a lot of farmers who are saying their soil, it's all about the soil that needs looking after.
Putting more carbon into the soil. It's a fantastic way to do it.
Fantastic. Now, is there any noticeable difference of the compost that comes out based on what goes into the compost bin?
Yeah, I suppose you might notice people with the mini bin typically have more kitchen waste and smaller gardens. So theirs will come out probably that little bit wetter. Obviously, we want to try and mix in dry materials as we go, like shredded paper, torn up cardboard and things like that. But yeah, if you're composting majority of garden waste, you might just find that if you've done much pruning or put much in the way of, deadheading and plant stems and waste from harvesting your crops and things like that, you probably just see that it's a little bit, I don't know whether lumpy is the right word, but yeah, there'll be some more rigid, woodier particles left in there, I would have thought. But yeah, they're still, both perfectly usable. But yeah, that consistent will be slightly different depending on the ingredients that people are adding in.
Right, so it just changes the consistency, which kind of makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
So, if anybody is thinking about getting a hot bin, what tips would you share to get the best results from it?
I suppose the key one is keeping the bacteria happy, but you don't. It's a straightforward process. The hot bin is designed to be as simple as possible, but if people come and talk to us at events we go to, like it might be, I'm just struggling to get mine up to temperature. It's typically like an airflow issue. There's not enough oxygen or not enough air spaces to allow the bacteria to work as effectively and as they need to. And if airflow gets blocked, that can stall the temperature and can block or can prevent you from getting higher temperatures. So I suppose the key to that is just being really mindful of that as you're putting in or new waste, or if you're putting in fresh waste from your caddy, mix in slightly bulkier items like some wood chippings or some shredded paper, tear up your egg cartons, tear up your toilet roll tubes, shred your Amazon packaging and kind of rip that up. Anything that adds just a little bit more bulk to the system to create those free air spaces will really help to give things a boost. But also just monitoring and being mindful of the moisture in the system as well. We don't want things to get too wet and turn anaerobic, so that's why we suggest if you're putting in a kitchen caddy, which might have high moisture content materials like your tea bags, like coffee grinds, empty in that 5-litre kitchen caddy and then drop in 2 handfuls of shredded paper or something drier, which will help to absorb that moisture and to prevent things from turning too smelly. But yeah, moisture and airflow are the sort of key ones, I think, and the regularity of how often you're feeding the hot bin as well. The bacteria are quite reliant on having a fresh injection of waste, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So a caddy here, a caddy there is better than 1 caddy a week, for example, or a little bit of garden waste every 2 weeks. Just try and keep it as consistent and regularly as you're producing waste in the kitchen or the garden. Just chuck it in the top.
Sure. I mean, it's funny, since we've set ours up, we've actually invested in a paper shredder.
Oh, fantastic.
We actually do old fashioned. We still use a lot of paper, particularly my wife for her work, and usually we burn it on our fireplaces. But we've built up so much paper that we've invested in the shredder, and we've actually seen how well the paper absorbs some of that moisture and controls the temperature in the hot bin when we added it in. So it's made a massive difference. What is the most common mistakes that people do when they first start out of the hot bin?
Maybe not adding enough dry material, letting the bin sort of cool down a little bit too much between feeding, so it goes back to that regularity piece. Maybe overfilling the bin, so somebody might have a huge amount of waste, and this is more to do with the 100 litre and the 200 litre, but they might try and just fill the bin all in one go. But the cyclical nature of the hot bin is that we want to be adding material to it on a regular basis. So the key is kind of getting it halfway full, a third full, getting that critical mass, getting that temperature up initially, and then just consistently adding to the bin as you're generating waste. Don't sort of overfill it. And things like, I've got quite a big lawn at home and could probably fill a hot bin in one go if I wanted to, but I'm sort of just mindful of, grass is fantastic for composting because it's a good natural accelerator. It gives the heap a lot of heat and helps things to really get up to temperature, which is why it's a good ingredient to start off with if you've got any available. If you don't, things like blood and bone meal, any chicken pellets and things like that, you could just throw in if you've got them readily available to get things kick-started. But yeah, it's just a matter of, keeping things regular. And if you are adding in grass, break up those grassy layers because they can form a matted layer which will clog the airflow. So if you have added grass in the past, just break those layers up to maintain again that airflow side of things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you supply with a hot bin is a big pole, isn't it? For
like a rake.
That's it. There,
yeah.
Rake hook. That's the word I was looking for. And that's actually, I found that quite good for breaking up matted compost and mixing the materials together as we go.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen when I keep an eye on the temperature, once we've done that, the temperature then increases once again.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of hooky device is great for evenly incorporating those extra ingredients. So if you're putting in a handful of shredded paper, use that. You don't have to dig down to the depths of the bottom of the bin because we don't want to drag composted material into the fresh waste. We just want to give like the very top layer, the hottest, most active layer at the top, that little stir, get a bit more air through it, and to evenly incorporate any woody materials or some bark mulch or anything like that, and the shredded paper, so it's consistently throughout the heap as you go, and that will maintain the airflow.
Now, I know you said you were at Chelsea Flower Show this year.
We are, yes.
You've been there in the past. I guess when you're at these sort of events, do you get to speak to the public and find changes in attitudes with composting since launching Hotbin?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely much more interest. I remember quite early days, we had to work quite hard to sort of pull people on to the stand and kind of give them that educational pitch, just to talk them through the pros of composting and why it's important and educating people. But now at events, I don't know whether you've been to Chelsea, but it's a busy week, and there's rarely times on the stand where we have time to pause or take lunch. There's a lot of people wanting to learn more. People are much more receptive to composting and the principles behind it, and some people just come. They're very, very well read on the system, and they've done their research. Like, yep, I want this hot bin. But other people, yeah, you do need to just talk through. I suppose sometimes the things that put people off about composting is, the lack of space they might have. They might think they need a huge space because they've seen people composting with pallets in the past. Obviously, don't have that problem with hot bin. People are short on time these days. And again, we've tried to make this process as simple as possible to make it easier. So the time factor isn't so much of an issue anymore. And then it's there's a huge amount of food waste, as we know, in this in the UK, but globally as well.
I mean, this is the trouble I have. There's so much food waste, which we shouldn't really have any food waste anyway. It's such a valuable resource.
Yeah.
But there is food waste that goes on, of course. And if we're all turning that into compost, again, it comes back to it feeds our soil, looks after our soils, and it helps look after so many more things. Less chemicals added to our soil as well.
Yeah.
Everybody should be composting.
Yeah, and at that point again, in the past with cold composting, there's those things that people, can't compost, and I think one of the inventors, Tony's big claims was that any organic food waste, nothing that he produces now goes to refuge collection. It's all literally going in his compost bin, and that's how we can all do it if we're that way sort of inclined. And I've tried to do that and at home as well, and try and educate the kids as I go. But I used to have 2 green wheelie bins at home, but I've managed to reduce that down to 1. So now I'm paying the council less to only pay for 1 green bin instead of 2. Obviously, I don't need to buy as much compost anymore. Those kind of cost-saving advantages as well. But it's good. People often buy into the Hotbin just because they want to live a bit more sustainably as well. It's not always about I can get free compost, but they just want to do their bit for the planet. And we're seeing and talking to more people at the shows who sort of echo those sentiments. So it's great to see people a bit more mindful of I probably should be composting. I've got a garden, I've got a bit of space, I'm producing this waste. I really should look into this a bit more, and it's good to talk to those people at the events that we attend.
I mean, one of the things that I've really liked about the Hotbin as well, and it brings me up to why people should be composting more. In the past I've had, and I've still got lots of the old style Dalek compost bins.
Yeah.
But when I've seen them in my garden, they're 4 or 5 in a row, they just stand out and they look horrible. Since I've put the Hotbin in place, it sort of loses itself in the background a bit better. It doesn't look so garish. And I think that's quite an important thing when it comes to our gardens as well. People want their gardens to look nice, and then you stick this horrible dark compost bin, and it loses something.
It's quite neat and compact. It's mess free. There's no overflow as well. So it's competing, like you're doing all that composting in a small space, and everything's isolated to that space.
You mentioned councils earlier as well. Are you working with any councils, schools, or allotment groups to promote composting or get your products out there?
Yeah, we've done bits and bobs in the past, and if there's anybody out there who would like to approach us, any listeners who any sort of community gardens or schools and things like that, we do offer small discounts to charities and schools if they want to do a bit more to encourage composting. So it's with those sort of platforms, it's good to have somebody who can really champion the product if you're doing it as part of a community. Just somebody who can tell everybody else about why it's important to do that, and we can provide them with sort of resources to do that. But we've done lots with charities and schools in the past, and would like to continue to do that as well. So please get in touch, or just via the Hotbin website if you've got something or got an idea, and we can talk to you about it and see whether Hotbin's going to be the right solution for you.
Now, moving to the future, have you got any innovations, updates coming up with Hotbin in the future?
You must have read my mind, because we do have something in the pipeline that we're hoping to launch just before Chelsea. We've actually, because obviously we've spoken about the material, it's a great insulator. We were looking at other sort of products that we can manufacture from our materials, and we've developed a Hotbin garden kneeler. So it's not composting, but it's a sort of ancillary secondary products. These materials as well, like I say, do cushioning for automotive, impact protection for automotive. So it seemed like a logical route to go down. So kind of part of the Hotbin secondary category of products. But I've literally just knelt on the first one off the manufacturing presses this week, and it's really, I find it really comfortable, and great for just use throughout the garden, but not just in the garden, any kneeling tasks. A good little product to add to the product range, and will be there. at Chelsea with the Neela, and we're doing an offer free Neela with any Hotbin purchased at Chelsea. So if any of your listeners are heading to Chelsea, please look us up, and we can certainly talk to you a bit more about the product.
That sounds very interesting as well. I can imagine how comfortable that is on the knees, because having looked at my Hotbin and squeezed it, I can feel how comfortable it would be. So
yeah.
So I think we're going to come to the end of our little chat here. Thank you so much for joining me, Andy. If any of our listeners want to find out more, where can they find out about Hotbin and get their hands on one?
Yeah, good question. So main website would be hotbincomposting.com. If you do have any listeners in the US, it's hotbincomposting-us.com. But there's loads of videos on our YouTube channel as well, which you can find through the website. There's loads of user-generated content, so it's not just us talking about Hotbin. There's loads of other sort of really authentic reviews of other people using the Hotbin system. Warts and all, it doesn't always go right. But yeah, people giving their honest feedback on the product. So by all means, follow us or subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. Like I say, the website's full of case studies and things like that. And if you wanted to read more, we're on Trustpilot, where the Hotbin is sort of rated excellent as well. Chelsea Flower Show. So we'll be there from the 19th onwards for a week. Any other those routes, but yeah, reach out on email. We've got a free phone number as well on the website with some composting experts at the end of the line, and we're always happy to work with users to get if they are struggling. We've got a dedicated customer support line, and our promise is that we'll sort of work with you until you're happy you've confidently got the product up and running and composting as you want it to with the waste you have available. So yeah.
Fantastic. And I take it somebody could, if they wanted to buy a Hotbin, they could buy it directly from your website. They
can indeed, and we've also got a little discount code that we wanted to share, if that's okay. So 10% off the Hotbin product range. So any Hotbin Mini, the 200 litre or the Hotbin Mega can qualify for 10% discount. The code is VGP, so Veg Growers Podcast, VGP 10HB. And you can just key that in at the checkout to qualify for 10% discount.
Fantastic. I'll make sure everything is in the show notes for anybody listening as well. Andy, this has been an absolute pleasure chatting. I've got to say, I'm going to go and poke around with my Hotbin a bit more. Thank you so much for today.
Yep, please do. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how you get on with the Hotbin versus Dalek showdown, as it were. I could look forward to hearing the results.
Chopping all the veggies, sizzle in the air. Chef Scott with the magic, smells are everywhere. Water starts to boil, onions hit the pan. Recipe of the week, let the feast begin. Cooking with Chef Scott, flavors come alive. Tune in every week for a tasty bite.
Hi, it's Scott here with this week's recipe. And with Richard being on the road with Lee, taking gardening to schools, I thought we could have a bit of fun and create them a grow-your-own travel snack. And I think a bag of crisps is hard to beat. So this week's recipe is root vegetable crisps with crispy garlic, sage, rosemary and sea salt. So let's head to the kitchen and hear how it's made. As usual, you can find this recipe and others on the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk and on my Instagram page, seed2table plot 13. For this recipe, I won't give you quantities as it's more about the method, and you can make as much or as little as you like. But let's start with the vegetables. Any root vegetable will work. I use carrots, parsnips, celeriac, beetroot, sweet potato and Jerusalem artichokes. And to top this off, you will need some whole sage and rosemary leaves and garlic sliced into thin slivers and some fine sea salt. Method. Start by preparing the veg by using a peeler to create the crisps. You just need to take the skin off and then use the peeler and keep peeling to create thin slivers. Then deep fry each veg separately until crisp. You can tell when they are crisp when the oil stops bubbling so much and goes quiet. Now do the same with the garlic, rosemary and sage, and then season with the sea salt and start munching. And that's the recipe done, and that's it from me this week.
Well, I'm here on the allotment now, just before I leave for my week away. And I've got to admit, I've been down to this allotment every evening this week, and it certainly has paid off. But my main thing I've been doing this week is, of course, clearing out any weeds that are popping up, but also giving everything a really good solid watering. Now, everything that is in the ground, onions, garlic, potatoes, broad beans, these have needed a lot of water to keep them going, and I think they are now starting to really, really thrive. To the point that the potatoes we mulched with straw last week are actually in need of some more straw. They've grown so much that the foliage has just outgrown the straw that we added last week. So that's a good sign. Growth is really, really exploding, but the weeds are also exploding as well. Now, I have to admit, I've spoken a lot about watering, of course, with it being so dry, something I keep going on about. But last week we spoke about mulching and how that saves time. And this is definitely something that I have noticed this week. I do try and check my soil, even with a mulch, just to see how wet the soil is. And I've got to say, the soil is remaining very, very moist. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm away for a week, I wouldn't be too worried about watering the plants that are already established. It mainly comes back to plants that have newly been planted that I would worry more about. And as I've said earlier, I'm away this week. Amanda can't get down here to water while I'm away, so I haven't really planted anything out this week, which is a shame because I've got lots and lots of plants, lots and lots of seedlings that are ready to go into the ground. But I know if I planted them out this week, I would come back and they would be dead. So I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But that means that when I come back next weekend, we're going to have to do a lot of work to get it into shape. Hey ho, this is all the fun of an allotment, isn't it? I have to admit, I am going to miss this place when I'm away. This is my little sanctuary. On my way home from work, I love just taking a few minutes here to clear my head before returning home. Well, that is coming to the end of this week's podcast. I'm going to finish off here on the allotment. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have enjoyed it as always. Please do check out Hotbin Composting. Please, if you are looking to buy a Hotbin compost, please use our discount code and save a little bit of money. Also, please do check them out on social media. And if you are at Chelsea this week, check them out there. Now, don't forget to rate and review on your podcast provider. It only takes you a few seconds, but it means the world to us. We've had lots of ratings coming over this last week, but only one review, which of course comes from Lynn on Spotify. Lynn says, "Hi Richard, sorry to hear about the traffic near your plot. I've had 6 different plots over the years, some great, some awful, but my new one is the best and no plans to move." This is it. I love this plot. I do love this plot. It's just annoying that the roads have made it so much more noisy. But thank you, Lynn. It's so true. There is no perfect plot. Now, please do, if you have also enjoyed this podcast and you want to help support the work that we do, please become a member of our supporters club, as mentioned earlier. But you can also support us through our affiliate links, which include Autopot for watering systems and Premier Seeds Direct if you are looking to buy seeds. Very simple, just head to my website, click on the links, and that's all you often need to do, and go and shop. They take you to the websites that you need. If you want to get in touch, then please do use our voicemail feature on the website, theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk, or you can also send me an email, richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk, and of course don't forget to find us on social media. Well, with that, it's time to wrap this one up. So until next time, please take care.